Hello beautiful people, welcome to the channel. Reverend Debbie here, hope you're all doing well. Today's video is part 2 of my expose on Andrew Tate. This is information that is taken from the Daily Mail, an interview that was conducted by Matt Shea and Jamie, I can't remember how to pronounce his name, Tashin. These two gentlemen went over to Romania to interview Tate at his compound to find out what he's all about. And this article is part of their findings, as well as a documentary that is on the BBC, which I will link into the comment section below. And before I start with where we left off yesterday, I just want to remind you the crimes that Andrew Tate is alleged to have committed that are being investigated in Romania currently. Human trafficking, intercourse with minors, money laundering, and possible grape with a minor. That's in Romania. In the UK, there are a number of women who come forward with allegations of grape. And I believe there is somebody in, I think it's Brazil, it's somewhere in South America, another lady. And then there is 2 people in the States who are being sued by the Tates for defamation. That in itself is a very complex situation and court case. And yeah, these are things that we'll look at in the future. So let's go back to the article from the Daily Mail, which I have taken out a subscription on so that you don't have to. Remember, yesterday we finished with Helen, who was raped by Tate. She had a boyfriend. She didn't want to have intercourse with Tate, and he raped her while Sally, these are not their real names, remember that, was in the shower. So don't forget that Helen had said that she wanted to practice from home, work from home on this webcam business, which was all to do with webcam porn. And he had told her, you know, don't be daft, don't be silly. So they spoke to Helen over the phone, and Helen hung up at first. But in a subsequent call, she explained that it was still extremely difficult for her to talk about what happened. In addition, she was dating someone who wasn't comfortable with her even mentioning it. Now, obviously she's not happy talking about it, because what woman is happy talking about rape? In fact, many of us don't even report it to the police, because we know most of the time it's their word against your word. And most of the time the information doesn't even get handed over to the CPS. The sergeant won't hand it over because there's not enough evidence. And even if it does go to court, the legal team of the offender will blame the woman for the way she's dressed, the amount of alcohol she drank, and so on and so on. And that's in a video that I did recently, which I'll also link in the comments section below. She said that a few months before, as Tate was becoming famous, she tried to share her story on TikTok, only to find hundreds of Tate supporters, tater-totters, and incels, abusing her and then reporting her account to the site managers, leading to it being removed. Now, I actually put up a video the other day, one that had actually been on YouTube, and I downloaded it from YouTube and put it onto my TikTok, and somebody reported it, and I actually appealed against it and won, because there was nothing in there that wasn't the truth. And it had already been shown on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. So these tater-totters, these incels, are all around the world, and they go in and type, and they are trying to bait you. I've got a couple who have been trying to bait me, and it's so funny. One is in India, and it's really funny because I can see the stats on my YouTube account, and the India figures have gone up quite high. The more they comment, the more the video is watched, the more traffic I get to my YouTube channel. Do I mind? Not at all. I'm quite happy to have disagreements with these people, because I'm a feminist and my job is to educate. Helen didn't think that she was in a place to be able to go on camera for our documentary, but she was keen for Sally to speak publicly about what had happened to them both. Sally recounted her and Helen's story in a filmed interview, having decided that she would not allow herself to be intimidated by Tate and his followers. There had always been questions around Tate and his behaviour towards women, particularly the ones who worked for his webcam company. They didn't work. They were coerced. They were forced. They didn't even realise that they were forced to do this. They had been conditioned by the narcissistic, misogynistic pimp that is Tate, and latterly his brother Tristan. But here was someone giving us direct and detailed account of physical and sexual abuse. It was amazingly brave of her to agree to go public, speaking out against one of the most famous men on the internet, whose fans had a reputation for harassing his critics online. As I said, yeah, they do. They love that. It's okay. I don't mind. I spent the Brexit years and the 2016-2020 election years arguing with Conservatives and various other reform right-wing characters, so I'm used to it. I've got big shoulders, quite happy to go into these discussions and conversations because I do my research. I don't just suck it out of my thumb. I research and make sure that the information I have is accurate. And if it's not accurate, I will own up to it and say, okay, I was wrong there. Here's the change. It was amazing, as I said, it was amazingly brave of her. She was determined. I want people to know what he did to us, she said. We asked Sally if she had reported Tate to the police. She told us she had phoned the Specialist Metropolitan Police, the Met Police Division, that dealt with grape investigations, and an officer had interviewed her at home, but nothing further came of it. And as I said before, if a woman is raped, it is very, very rare that that case goes to court. So let's take a figure. Okay, so you've got 4 women. All of them have been raped. They all report it. Two don't report it. These 2 do. One of them is told, insufficient evidence, we can't take it any further. So then there is 1 left. That goes to court. What happens? The lawyers for the defendant will say things such as, oh, well, you were dressed like that, you were asking for it, you were drunk, you had too much alcohol, so on and so on and so on, making it the woman's fault. And that's victim blaming. And I did a video about that the other day, so I'll pop that into the comments description box below so you can have a look at that. Helen also reported her alleged rape to Hertfordshire Police, and in the summer of 2015, an investigation into Tate was opened. He was arrested for questioning, but then released. As happens, my last perpetrator was taken in for questioning and then released because there wasn't enough evidence. Meanwhile, I know what happened to me. A year went by and Sally was phoned by the police with some bombshell news. Tate would be appearing on the reality TV show Big Brother. She was horrified. How could its producers have agreed to have him on? Although Tate hadn't been charged at this point, and there was no way that the allegations would have shown up on any checks during the show's casting process. Hertfordshire Police confirmed with us that once they knew Tate was on the show, they had contacted the production company Endemol Shine and informed them of the ongoing investigation into Tate. The producers decided to keep Tate on the show for a further 5 days, during which he was shown playing Truth or Dare in the hot tub and kissing a topless female contestant. And we all know Big Brother is sort of like that, so I never watched it. Just not my thing, not my cup of tea, just a waste of hours of my life. I would rather be reading a book or even watching paint dry. The producers decided to keep Tate, and after those 5 days, they removed him from the show for undisclosed reasons relating to events outside of the Big Brother house. Now, it later turned out that that was due to a video that was released of Tate using a belt on a woman and being derogatory towards her. The press reported that this ousting was linked to a video that had surfaced of him slapping his ex-girlfriend, and Tate himself endorsed this version of events, releasing a video on Facebook of the woman saying that it was all part of a consensual kinky game. Public outrage simmered down. There is consent, but then there isn't consent. And that line of no is very, very thinly veiled. I think I did a video about it, or I've got one upcoming about it, about consent and different words that mean no, different phrases that mean no. Here was an early example predating his real rise to fame of Tate's ability to spin public narratives in his favour. He reminds me of Donald Trump. You know, Trump has his whole MAGA crowd that thinks he is the saviour. He's their god. And the incels and tater-totters think that Tate is their god. They're just men. And to be honest, they're both predators. Despite being removed from Big Brother due to an ongoing police investigation for rape and physical assault, he had the public believing it was because he had made a consensual bondage video with his ex-partner. Sally and Helen were angry with the Big Brother producers for confronting them with their abuser by putting him on one of the biggest shows in the country, but their real frustration lay with the police, and I completely understand that, because that's how I feel. There is not enough investigation into allegations of rape and, sexual abuse or even domestic violence. The victim is normally called out and said, oh no, you were asking for it. Again, it comes to that victim blaming the victim for what happened to her. This needs to change. And I think that this is part of my work here on YouTube, is to help to change these views that, women don't rape themselves. It is done by a man, and they're then lied to. It's very, very rare that a woman is larger than a man physically and can defend herself. And we know this. Sorry, I'm just reading through this where I was. Right. The two women had filed their criminal complaints with the police shortly after the alleged events occurred in 2015, then undergone police interviews. They had handed over their phones for inspection, a common police demand at the time for sexual assault survivors. And that in itself is disgusting. What about the perpetrator's phone? Why isn't that taken? Why is it only the victim's phone that is used? That's wrong. That's wrong. Remember, we're talking about narcissism, coercive control, trauma bonding, Stockholm syndrome, all of these things which a male predator will use to convince a young woman that she is now responsible for what he has done to her. And shared their sexual health records because both alleged that Tate had given them a sexually transmitted infection. Yet it wasn't until almost 4 years later, in July 2019, that the police passed their cases on to a lawyer at the Crown Prosecution Service, that's the CPS, who would choose whether or not to proceed with a charge and take the case to court. Astonishingly, the CPS decided not to prosecute. Well, they say astonishingly, but to be fair, this happens time and time again with women, where the CPS say, no, there isn't enough evidence. It's time that the victim was believed. Even though it is, so astonishingly, the CPS decided not to prosecute, even though it is extremely unusual to have a witness in rape cases, namely Sally witnessing Tate raping Helen. And it is unusual to have a victim in rape cases. It really is. Because most of it happens behind closed doors. The vast majority of rape is between partners, somebody who the woman knows. That's the vast majority. The very rare amount of women who are raped out in public by strangers. When we asked the CPS why, they told us the case did not meet our legal test and there was no realistic prospect of a conviction. And that's right, they won't take something to court if they can't convict the person. Something needs to change within the legal system in the United Kingdom, and probably in the rest of the world as well, as far as rape is concerned. The whole experience had left Sally and Helen devastated. Sally ended our interview with a message to Tate's followers. All these young men follow him and think he's such a great guy and he's their idol. There are better role models out there. Don't be fooled by all the money and the nice cars and all the women. Real men don't lay their hands on women, and that is true. And I'm pretty sure all you young men, you tater-totters and you incels were told by your fathers not to lay a hand on women, unless, of course, your father was of that ilk. But do you want to see your mother treated that way? Because we're heading down the route of Gilead here. This is heading into medieval times. This is heading to before medieval times, when women were serfs, slaves to the man. That only stopped really with the last generation, the silent generation, pre-boomers. Boomers managed to start working, managed to start earning their own money as women. And we as Gen Xers have carried it on. But now there's this whole trip to want to go backwards to what it was like then. Take away the power from women. Women are becoming too powerful. We put Helen's and Sally's allegations to Tate via his lawyer. Tate, unsurprisingly, denied all of them and accused Sally and Helen of wanting money because he fired them. He considered the CPS's decision not to charge him as evidence that I am innocent. Well, it's not evidence that I am innocent. It is evidence that there isn't enough evidence and that the CPS and the police need to do more for women who are raped and abused. And, of course, he claims he fired them and that they wanted money. Of course he would. That is the initial response. Oh, she was asking for it. She knew she wanted it, but she didn't know she wanted it. She wanted money from me. She wanted status from me. No woman asks to be raped, ever, for anything. Yet we were receiving more reports from women who had been abused by Tate. One of them, we'll call her Amelia, told us she grew up in Luton and had known Tate since 2009. After bumping into him in a nightclub in 2013, they started dating. Amelia was 20, 7 years younger than Tate at the time, and had only been in one serious relationship. Tate was sweet at first, she said. I'm going to leave it there for this video because we're already on 17 minutes and I know that people don't like watching such long videos, so I'm going to record part 3 later on. Hopefully you'll keep watching. Please pop some comments below what you think of this, especially if you're a woman, what you think of this kind of behavior, how we can stop it, how we can change the future for women of this world. If you've enjoyed the video, please click the like button. Please subscribe to the channel. Hope to see you next time. Blessed be.